Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Breakfast Club of New Jersey. Oh, seeing some waves, that's nice. And want to let you know that my name is not Frank Kovacs. Frank, in this time of the pandemic, has been extremely busy at work, and he is busy working, but otherwise Frank is well. And Frank left the keys to Jerry and myself, and so we will kick off and run the meeting for us. So for those of you visiting the Breakfast Club of New Jersey, want to thank you for visiting with us. The Breakfast Club of New Jersey is a group that was formed right after the events of 9/11. A number of friends had gotten together, I guess over breakfast, and began to form their own work group through their job search, help them with their job search. And it became a very important process at the time, and it really then evolved beyond just the few of them having breakfast at the diner. It became a very important group to support all job seekers. So the group has been running since late 2001 and has grown into this very large and warm support group. We are here to help anybody in any kind of career transition. We do meet every month on the second Saturday of the month, hence you're here. We do have a website. It is called thebreakfastclubnj.com, thebreakfastclubnj.com. And it is all sorts of information that we do provide to help job seekers. We put all sorts of information on our website to keep ourselves in touch. We do have a LinkedIn group as well, also called the Breakfast Club NJ. So look on LinkedIn. There are over 1,800 members in the Breakfast Club LinkedIn group. And these are all like-minded people who understand and get the value and importance of communicating and staying in touch and helping each other in job search. So it's another valuable resource for all of us. We have a meetup group. I think a lot of you know that already, the Breakfast Club NJ. And so we do announce our meetings there as well. It's really helped expose and broaden our reach to a larger audience. And we have a Yahoo group. And it's the Yahoo group is also what's used for communicating to each other. So we do use that for announcing positions that we have and other things, programs and events that will help job seekers. It's meant for everybody. You can write to our email address right there, and then that will go to our Yahoo group. To become a member of the Yahoo group, we do ask you on our website, there is a join group button. I don't remember, I think it's in the upper right, and you click on that button, and it does require several pieces of information. It will require that you do put in your name, your contact information, which includes your email address and phone number, and also who referred you. What is your reference for joining the group? If you don't have a specific reference, use my name. That's perfectly fine. You now have a reference. Do we require the phone number? Do we require the email address? Yes. So all of those fields are required. Sometimes people like or prefer not to give certain contact information, but we ask that you do that. What I will do now is introduce Jerry Payton. Jerry Payton and I are on the speaker committee. There are several committees that help run and keep the Breakfast Club up and running. And Jerry will introduce Eileen. And at the same time, what I will be doing is allowing Eileen or giving her the ability to share her screen. And she will then be able to share her slide deck with us and proceed with the presentation. So Jerry, have at it.
Thank you, David. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, we have a great presentation and a terrific speaker this morning I'd like to introduce. Eileen Sinett is a communication specialist who helps professionals communicate at their best. As a consultant, trainer, facilitator, and coach, he focuses on growing clients' communications confidence and performance. For over 30 years, Eileen's company, Speaking That Connects, has served individuals from various industries, from pharmaceutical, legal, healthcare, financial, technical, nonprofit organizations to enhance the impact of their presentations, network speeches, interviews, keynotes, trade show conversations, and interpersonal relationships. Her mission is to promote speaker confidence, message clarity, and audience connection. I'd now like to hand it over to Eileen.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Eileen.
Hey, we got there. So I appreciate all the patience. I think the COVID-19 situation has made us pretty resilient and perhaps less body language focused than before, since we can't shake hands and look into people's eyes and have a lot of technical glitches at times. But that's something I'd like us to weigh in on as a group. Especially since some of you are in transition and I know are taking interviews online. And this whole area of body language is like an open field right now. I was asked by David, excuse me, do you think you can edit that one out? Do you think you can do a talk on body language? I know your style is to be in front of a group and to engage and to be dynamic. And I thought, well, we have to look at what communication is in whatever platform we're given, because humans react to humans in different ways. So here I am, and here you are, and I'm really delighted to be speaking, but more having a conversation about body language. So let me give you a little background to my experience in figuring out what works. So I truthfully, yes, Skype, yes, FaceTime once in a while, family members once in a while, clients, but I already know those people. And I was thinking about, like, why is this virtual space so difficult for me? I couldn't quite wrap my mind around it. I knew my IT skills were, virtual skills were minimal, but I didn't really connect with what was going on that was different for me. So I had to physically, mentally, visually immerse myself in what is it like to walk into a room where you don't know anyone, say a networking situation, and what is happening to you? What are you noticing? What are you feeling? What is the dynamic that's going on here? In order to figure out why a Zoom screen or another GoToMeeting screen or WebEx, Microsoft Teams, what is not feeling right for you? So if you've seen me before, or if you know what performers do or instructors do, they're in front of a group, and what works in front of a group does not work in the same way on the screen. I can't look at you individually. Like a media journalist, I'm looking at a camera to be able to broadcast my eye contact to, say, the whole of the audience rather than the individuals. And I'm going to get back to that in a little bit. So it really took a lot from me, and it may not be the same for you, to realize what's off. Why is talking remotely so different than talking face-to-face? And it has its importance in terms of lots of different contexts. So let me give you a background to know who I am in terms of the lens from which I'm sharing this information. I started my career in speech pathology. So as a therapist, you're differentially diagnosing everything. You're looking very deeply at how people communicate. You're both focused psychologically as well as behaviorally. So I'm trained behaviorally to see things that most people don't see. I spent many years behind a one-way mirror, looking at different people and being told by my professor, That's not all that's there. What else do you see? So I'm very vigilant in the visual field. I'm also very vigilant in terms of listening, because as a speech person, that's what you do. And you listen to not just the sound of the tone, but the cadence, the amount of time someone takes to say what they want to mean. And all these things are, can be differentiators in terms of who you are and the context in which you're speaking. So moved forward to another position, still a speech and language person, but working in the mental health field for the University of Medicine and Dentistry, where what were the emotional impacts of the way people were speaking or using their language. And then in my own business, subcontracted to career management, where I worked with video, and then also as a subcontractor worked with corporate training and development. And here I am today as your speaker, talking on body language from the background of speech and presentation coaching and business communications. So we know this, but there are many ways we are seen, and they are in interviews, which I know a lot of you in transition are focused on. Networking, which I miss. I really miss the face-to-face, and maybe you don't. You walk into a room, the physical space gives you some context. You might even be more awkward in face-to-face meetings, but there's still a dynamic that is around your body, the shared space. Presenting, here I am presenting online, preferring probably to stand up and present as I would have pre-COVID. Obviously sales, socializing, whether it's dating, and they've been online for a while, and then negotiating. So these are just some of the communication contexts where body language, even though messaging is important, body language still counts. Besides knowing who I am, I want you to know how I think. Partially as a speech person who's looked at people deeply in terms of what they communicate, but also through this model of communication that came, say, in the last 10 years, where I see that when we're in communication, there are 4 factors that are going on. We have that inner dialogue, or that inner world of knowing who we are that we don't always reveal to people. Maybe it's confidence, maybe it's attitudes, maybe it's emotions, but that's going on, as well as what you're saying or your message, who you're saying it to, your audience, and how is engagement, by the way, different for virtual and for live presentation. How do you do that when you're remotely? How do you engage? How do you connect with people? Some things we're going to continue to talk about. And then obviously the one item, the one element or component that's so important for this presentation has to do with how you deliver and your behavior, which is your physical self. But again, these 4 factors interlock. You feel anxious, sometimes it shows up in your body. You feel confident, it also can show up in your face, in your body. So moving on, I just want you to know this is the model that helps me and may help you to look at what's important in communication. So we have about, 60 some people, 70 people on this call. And if you're comfortable in the chat, it would be great to answer this question. What do you notice? What do you take in when you meet someone for the first time? Let's use the networking space. You walk into a room, whether it's a Zoom room or let's make it a live room for right now. You walk into a situation of networking. What is it that you pay attention to first when you meet a person? So if you would put that into the chat, that would be a great informal research item. I see we have 7. Okay, we have 74 people on this call. That's quite impressive. It's good to see you all, but I can't see you all. So let me read some of these, and I'm not going to identify you, but let's see. Everybody can see the chat, correct?
To turn on chat, and well, if they're writing chat, then obviously they're seeing it. But if you haven't, the upper right corner has a little icon, kind of the way the cartoon character circle may be speaking. And if you click on that, that's chat. You can read through them. And of course, Eileen, if you're going to comment on any, just read it so it's recorded also on the video.
Here you go. So let me say first person's comment is smile, eye contact, their face, whether they're relaxed or tense, their carriage, which has to do with how they carry themselves, or often posture or style. Smile, neat appearance. Are they looking and focusing on the conversation? Approachability, as an eye contact, positive stance, self-awareness, welcoming personality, good grooming, and if the presenter is neatly well-dressed, new people and what are they wearing. And so if we take in the essence of most of those comments, it has to do with their face, their eyes, their carriage, their clothing. So it appears to me, even though this is a small, say, segment of our audience that wrote in, that people are attending to what they see. And that's not surprising, since there are more centers of the brain that process visually than any other sense. The details of that, I can find that information out for you. I don't have it right here, but know that our brains have different areas of visual processing, and it's more expansive than other things. Here's some more comments besides friendly faces. Who looks comfortable versus who looks forced and desperate? I love that. Confidence in posture. Happy people. Right. So, for example, I am someone who people have said to me, when you're listening, you don't look so happy. And that's probably because I'm processing deeply, or I'm focused on what I'm hearing and I'm processing deeply. Let's put it that way. It takes me more time when a big group, as in networking, to find my way. And so to be comfortable in a large group is hard. To be comfortable in this remote situation for me is harder, because I am a people person and I'm comfortable with the interaction. As an introvert, and some of us have both ambivert, extrovert tendencies and introvert tendencies, but that part of you that's introverted may show up where you're not comfortable walking into a space of a lot of people. It took me a long time to get comfortable in that space. On the other hand, put me in charge of a group, and that's an immediate comfort level. So we all have our differences in different contexts of what works with how we feel, which really can drive how you are looking and how you are being perceived. I'm just looking. So happy people, where does that show up? It shows up in your face or in your bounce of the way you walk. Who looks comfortable? Who looks desperate? Where does that show up? It shows up in your face. So I'm going to move on. You have seen this before, probably either in my presentation or similar presentations, and this 1960s research has been challenged over and over again as a poor study. So the percentages that Albert Mehrabian came up with about the impact of how you look, how you sound, and what you say may not really be accurate. And I haven't seen any research since then that looks at communication in this way. But what is uncontested from this research is that though the percentages and the study may have been less than what it could have been, there is this dynamic of taking in people, especially in the first few minutes of your meeting, from a visual perspective, and then noticing what they say and how they say it. And you can't really separate that verbal from the vocal, because what is speech spoken, if it doesn't have voice behind it, you won't hear it. Hope you understood that. So there's so many factors that have to do with body language or visual communication. So whether it's 55% or whether it's a different number, it exists. So let's look at some. And as you're thinking about these concepts, I'd like you to think about whether it impacts you or not. These are elements of body language. So height. I once read a book about body language and it said height might. So if you think about maybe basketball players or people who walk into a room that have strong charisma, maybe they are taller than more people, the average person. Weight, gender, face, complexion, and that also goes for race, hair, handshake, style, style. Someone mentioned clothing, whether they're pulled together well, especially if they're a presenter. So when we think of these factors, some of them may not be as important when it comes to virtual communication. Let's take a look here. Oh, actually, before we take a look at virtual communication, I want to add to the height, weight, complexion, hair, face, eyes, smile. As an aside, my mom has good teeth, and teeth are very important to her. So every date that I had, that's what she looked at. That was her body language priority. It might not have been the only priority, but that is something that a person can focus on. different people will focus on different things, although the majority will consciously or unconsciously take in the physicality of a person, their size, In addition, how you stand, sit. So I didn't look at myself in the screen, and I know I'm being videotaped, so I don't know if my head was cut off or not. So standing, that's not going to do it. I have to move away. Standing, sitting, what you're wearing, the colors can impact people. How you smell. Now, fortunately, on a virtual screen, you're not smelling garlic or cigarette smoke or things that might, I missed that. Somebody sent me something. And your energy. So odors can impact people and are considered nonverbal, or not visual, but nonverbal communication elements. I'm wondering if there are any questions before we move on, or any comments that people want to make. I'm happy to have this to be a discussion and a conversation.
Yes, and we can do that also through the chat. So if you have questions, as Eileen brings up a slide or a point, please feel free, enter it in chat, and she or I will be keeping a track on that as well.
Great. Yes, so there is a comment about hair, and I love that, that you're participating. Hair can be facial hair, hair in your ears, and your nostril hair. And so some people will never notice those things, and other people will. And so if you want to package yourself as positively as you can, you want to do a real head-to-toe evaluation. There's a comment here, what can we do to make, or question, to make the other person more comfortable with our body language? So I don't know exactly which part of your body language you're talking about. I think being an authentic, being true to yourself, being open to others, being transparent, packaging yourself as best you can. Those are the things that you can do that consciously or unconsciously influence others. It's not really your responsibility to make other people more comfortable with you once you've done your part to bring your image or your presence to the table as best you can. For example, I guess there are situations where, say, a person has a speech problem or a motor problem, or they look different because maybe they have had an injury or a medical situation, or they were born with a disability or a challenge. I could see where, you know, meeting someone who is very different from you might be uncomfortable for the other person. So if I were in the position of having that challenge or that difference, I'm not saying you, but I might say, I'm going to give you an example. I went to shake someone's hand once, and they had a palsy, or they had a problem with their hand. And it was awkward, but they said to me, don't worry, we don't need to shake hands. I know it's awkward. So sometimes you could say with a person, if it were yourself, you could give information to the other person to make them more comfortable. By the way, I have a fluency problem, So I know it takes me longer to get my words out. I appreciate your patience. Let me see what other comments have come in. Okay. There are a lot of things here. So for the person who asked me that question, how to make others feel comfortable with you, I think it's feeling comfortable with yourself first, packaging yourself the way you want to appear. And then if you have something that's very atypical, maybe being very transparent about it and making it okay. So we mirror each other also when we communicate, not online, but face to face. So your comfort is going to be also transmitted to the other person. Your comfort with yourself will be a way to influence someone else's comfort with you. I'm going to read another question now. How do you have good language over video? And could you say more about complexion? Okay, well, we haven't gone to the video situation yet, so we're going to do that next. So let me answer the question about complexion. Can I say more about complexion and stance? Yes. Let's start with the stance. That's the easiest one. If you're live, the best scenario for a public presentation is that you are grounded. I hope you can see me. I can't see myself. Rather than leaning on one leg or pivoting on a heel, I don't know if you can see this.
We can see you.
The lower part of your body does impact the upper part of your body. So it's important to have a comfortable stance. And what I say to people in general is that you can move after the intro of your presentation, but move with purpose. And for the first 30 seconds to 1 minute, allow yourself to settle in, home plate, relax knees, to be neutral, because this posture, and I hope you're seeing me, can be less judged than something like this. You know, so maybe this is a go-to posture for some, even if you're standing up. Once you change your foot, it changes other things about how you look.
Yes, we saw you, Eileen.
You could?
Yes.
Okay, this is the first body language virtual webinar I've done, so please, thank you for that. My hardest video issue, oh, complexion, all right. This can lead to issues of culture, race, image, of course, good complexion, bad complexion. For example, that porcelain skin, for me, is like caviar, you know, in another sense. I really wish I had it. I will notice perfect skin. Mine's not so imperfect, but I really notice that because it's an ideal that I like. Color of skin, we're in the throes of Black Lives Matter, and basically all lives matter, and all people will, I'm hoping, will unify as a humanity rather than our individual only, let's say, subcultures. I can't make someone like or accept someone else. I can only say that when it comes to complexion, we're going to see shades of difference. And it's shades of white, shades of black, shades of brown, shades of yellow. I think that's one aspect of complexion. I think another is broken capillaries. You know, W.C. Fields, when you see broken capillaries, often you think about alcoholism or some kind of medical issue. So that's another signal that can influence some observers. This is really important, this last fact that I'm going to move on, and we'll get more questions at another point in this webinar as well. We all process very differently. I'm going to ask you to put something in the chat right now to answer this question. Do you prefer to get the news from the TV or internet visually, like media-wise? Are you watching and listening simultaneous? So let's call that TV as a symbol. By reading the news in a newspaper or online article, so reading, TV, reading, or from a podcast or radio, which would be, let's use the word radio to encapsulate all the auditory preferred ways of processing. So just take a minute now, about a minute, and write TV, radio, or reading. Good, I got reading, TV, reading, TV, public radio, good, TV, radio. I like a combination of watching the news, great, reading. If I don't have TV, reading. TV mostly, TV. Okay, good. So the reason I asked that question, it's like a shortcut, a combination. It's a shortcut for me to understand what's your preferred mode of processing. So perhaps this has some impact now as we go into the Zoom or the virtual communication. Okay, well, let me go forward to the Zoom, and I will go back to some of those slides. So this was my opening slide. You see that the graphics show what you're seeing and what's being blocked out when you're on a Zoom screen or a virtual screen. I'm going to just move this for a minute. Nope. Okay. Let's look at the virtual. So we have a lot of people, and this could be different whether you're in the hosting role or if you're in a participant role. But what body language focus do you have? These are the things that are more talked about in terms of what matters. So again, it's visual and auditory, or voice and body language, what you see and what you hear, more than it is what you say in the beginning. Now, there was a question. Thank you all, by the way, for participating. It's so much better. There was an investment in lighting is a good investment. It's made a difference. I think that's true. Maybe all it takes is good lighting. Yes, looking at the camera. So let me talk about, I'd like to move this over, David, and I'm going to X out of the chat for a minute so I can see how I'm doing. So this is my suggestion around eye contact. When I first started doing some meetings, and it wasn't one-to-one, and it wasn't someone I knew. So you have a group, you're new to the virtual space, you're trying to do what you normally do when you're in a room. It doesn't work. as I mentioned in that opening, going into a networking room, I had to replay that in my mind. What's not working for me on a Zoom screen? And one of the things is, what do I do with my eyes? I spent years perfecting stand-up performance, engaging people with my eyes, working my mind to remember people's names. And all of that goes down the tubes when you're dealing with virtual communication. I cannot look at David. I cannot look at George. I cannot look at Carol. I can only look in one way, like a media journalist, at your camera. And so the height of your laptop or whatever device you're using needs to be played with, as does the lighting, so that you can be seen as though it's a fireside chat, as though you're chatting with someone on the other side. So right now, my eyes are focused on the green light of my laptop, and hopefully that gives you a sense of who I am and engaging you. Now, this is the other way people will be on Zoom. They will be looking at your image. And let's see if we can get a fuller screen here. I'm still viewing everyone. Hey, David, what if I click that first 4 blocks?
Sorry, what are you trying to do?
I want to see more people.
I think in your view as the presenter, it's limited. You have that dashboard in the upper right section with those arrows. Maybe you can open or close that. If it's minimized, there are maybe 2 or 3 dashes that you can open that up.
All right, well.
You could also stop sharing your screen and you'll see everybody, and then share your screen again if you want to stop sharing.
That'll be fun.
All right.
Let's see.
If you're not able to, I can stop that for you. There you go.
Oh, wow, look at that. That's amazing. This GoToMeeting, it's different than Zoom. So sure. It is like a checkerboard. I don't know if everybody sees it because some people's cameras are off. So
you can change it from who's talking to active cameras, and that'll turn off, and you'll just see the faces.
All right.
Each person's experience will be a little different.
Hello, Dominic. Yes, hello, Hresh. Yes, Joseph, this feels so much better. So I've been checking on, I've been a participant on many Zoom meetings and trying to figure out the best ways to do what I used to do in a new way that's still effective. And sometimes it's just having a wave and being able to see people. Now you see, I'm looking in different, I think you're going to notice right now I'm looking at Joseph Lillian, if that's, hey, but you can tell who I'm looking at. Is that correct? You can. But if I'm looking here, do you get a different sense? Do you feel like I'm looking to you as an individual? Yes, no? Yes. So now I'm looking at Funbi. Is that your name? Okay. So I'm looking to the right and sort of in the middle of my screen, but all you see is probably an angle of my head, and you don't know where my eyes are. The best way to use virtual communication for eye contact, the 3 biggies are the lighting, the audio, and where your eyes are going. So if you, a friend of mine actually shared this with me. I used to have it more, so I was looking at the screen. And some people here are looking at the screen in that way. Different people are in different angles and positions. And what I found out was that if I move maybe a foot back, I can eyeball the camera and see people at the same time. I can't see details of individuals, but it's more, if you ever have to do a presentation, I suggest this, online presentation, that you just move your body back a bit. You can look at the rest of the people. You see some are big head shots close up. Some are a little more in the retreated, and you get a different figure ground balance. And I'm able to see the green light, talk to the green light, and somehow have that peripheral vision that says, I see you. So that's important to me. I'm going to go back to sharing. How do I do that, David?
You should have a screen button at the bottom next to your camera or mic.
Okay, there we go.
And then you'll pick your screen or program.
Thank you. So good.
There it is.
So, friendliness. I'm better, I noticed when I was in a Zoom breakout room with 3 or 4 people, I came alive as a participant. I was much more able to see myself happy and friendly than when I'm in the huge space, 1 of 30, and watching the speaker or listening to the speaker. I don't know if that's just me, but it's my reality. And so I have to work really hard to feel friendly in the listening mode in a big group. My face might be resting bitch face, but it's not by intention. And like I said before, it may be the way I listen and how I process. I'm going to move on. Let me see how I can move on.
You might just have to click on your presentation.
Yeah, there we go. So this was my question before. Do you prefer the visual plus auditory or the auditory only reading or hands-on? So if you're used to being if you're a musician, if you're a coach, if you're a trainer, if you are a manager, there are a lot of different contexts where you are showing people how to do things. You are engaging in a holistic way in terms of who you are, not just information. And so I want you to think about what your learning style is so that you can be a little maybe more compassionate to yourself in terms of this virtual space. So I want to ask you this question, and I want to get back to everyone, so I'm going to have to get out of my screen, I guess, to see everyone. Does the background, do you believe the virtual background is important? And actually, what I want you to do is wave. All right, I can not see everyone.
So stop sharing your screen like before.
Okay, there we go.
Right, and then you want to show all the active cameras.
Okay, and then we want to show all right, hold on. So here we go. The question is, do you think your background counts? And I'm seeing yes, a lot of waves. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so I am curious, if you think your background counts, do you consider that body language? You can nod or yes or no. Frank says no. Robert says maybe. Yes, Barbara thinks yes. Okay, Haresh says yes. Joseph, yeah? Okay. So if your background tells something about you, just like your clothing might tell something about you, or your stance might tell something about you, then it's a choice to do something about it. I'm not going to tell you how to do your background, but there are plenty of consultants who can, and I could, but I'm not going to do that in this presentation. Sometimes people have, like, for example, I have a plant behind me. So if, you know, if the plant were grown out of my head where the picture is, or the plant was higher, it would look as if there was a plant on top of my head. For some people, Nancy's laughing. For some people, this would be a distraction, right? Sometimes too many things behind you can influence the viewer's attention span. Now, again, attention, focus, has a lot to do with how your brain processes and what your preferences are. But we also are very individually focused on what's important to us, what we expect. So Robert has a lot of books behind him in a bookcase. I have a picture and a plan and some masks on the wall. Someone else has blinds. Someone else has a curtain. Someone else. The other day I was on a webinar and the woman's bathroom door was right behind her, you know, in her apartment in New York. And to me, that was a distraction. Nobody was in it, but it was less an inviting focus, especially when she was the presenter and I was watching her. So I'm going to go back to the screen. I'm wondering if there are any questions at this point. Thank you for waving. Is there a question? Anybody have a question about what counts virtually? From my point of view, what counts in terms of body language is how can you make your eyes focus on the invisible audience when you're looking at the camera. They're not invisible. They're there, but you're talking through air. You know, we're not all trained in media. So in media communications, like actors or newscasters are. Excuse me, I gotta move this. So I think that was my lesson learned was instead of looking at the screen, look at the camera. I spent a lot of time figuring out what position in my room, what lighting in my room works best. At 6 o'clock in the evening, I go to a different room because the lighting is different and it works better in that room. But at 7:30, it's too dark. So you have to play around with some of these. And again, it is the framework around you, unlike the live situation. When you walk into a room, if it's not your room, like a networking meeting, you might take in some of the color or the composition or the furniture. You look at those things, but they don't necessarily reflect you. When you're in this flat screen situation, this does give information about you, whether or not all people judge it, notice it, value it. We can't control that. Oh, my screen went. Lost a signal.
Oh, there it is.
For my computer crashed for a second. So what replaces the handshakes that we have in a virtual, in a virtual meeting of networking? We are originally in 3 dimensions when we're in a room, and we are eyeballing, noticing faces, friendliness, comfortableness. And then the next thing that we usually do is greet a person. How do you do that virtually? What are your tools for engaging people? Any comments? Waving and smiling. Okay, great. So waving and smiling. I don't think the handshake will come back when this is over. Saying hi. Okay, then we get into the verbal. So hi with a friendly face. Hand gestures, okay, like saying hi. So we don't know what's going to happen in terms of this, but I do also, someone said, I don't know if the hand gestures, shaking hands will ever come back. We are in a brand new situation, and I can't help but think with all this social distancing and concern about staying healthy and safe, how that will impact humanity and socialization over time, especially with younger people being more technically trained and comfortable. Soft skills and touching might change the whole human race. That's a philosophical reflection. I probably won't be around to know its impact over 100 years, but that's not the focus of this presentation. So to get back on track, we usually eyeball, move into a space, and connect by facial expression or handshake. And that often gives us a lot of information about a person's strength of character or comfort level. And we can't do that very much anymore, if at all. So I'm just going to, I want to show you some photographs that I just cut and paste into this PowerPoint. I notice a friendly face first. Second, I notice crossed arms. That's my processing. What about you? Anybody want to weigh in on this? Thank you, Frank. The smile. Someone else might notice the glasses. Someone else might notice the clothing. Cross arms, less of a factor because of the smile. Exactly, smile and hair. Somebody else. Eye contact, she looks like she's engaged. So here, head tilt, thank you. Tilt of her head, great. Dress, dressing, eye contact, smiling and positive talking. Perhaps, we don't know if she's talking, but eyeglasses did not come up. Interesting. So what captures us on first impression seems like the energy of friendliness shown through the behavior of smiling and looking happy, positive energy, is more important than the closed arms. And I have this up here for the reason of saying that you got to look at the whole. Just because someone's arms are crossed doesn't necessarily mean that they're closed off. Doesn't mean anything in isolation. It's always in context. Appears welcoming. What if a mask covers the smile? That's a good one. What if the mask covers the smile? And that is sort of what's going on in the world today. So you don't get to see the smile. So if the eyes are twinkling and looking, and the energy of inside, if you remember my model, there's an inside part of communication that drives the outside, consciously or unconsciously. If that person is in a happy space or in a positive energy, and they're wearing a mask and their arms are closed, you will feel some part of that positive energy. I'm going to read another comment. You will see eyes smiling, Renata says. Okay. What else? Question here. What else does cross arms mean? Okay. Cross arms can mean I'm self-conscious about my upper body as a female. Crossed arms could mean I'm cold. And arms touching one's body in general, maybe it's one arm, maybe it's the face, maybe it's the neck or the hair. Generally, people are consciously or unconsciously touching themselves to soothe themselves or to take care of themselves. The general thought about body language is, particularly for presentation, is that when you're nervous, you tend to touch a part of your body so that you're physically calming yourself. It's like a self-soothing. Another question to add, she has a contrasting background behind her head, which highlights her face. Okay, we talked a little bit about backgrounds. Yes, you could be defensive, right? But defensive with a happy face like that is unusual, but that's another way, besides being cold, being embarrassed, being defensive, because you're protecting yourself. It's a posture of protection. Ah, someone just said that. Yes, there are face masks with a plastic piece so you can see the smile and the lips. Sounds like a good idea. I also saw a face mask. It was made in Israel that has a hinge on it that opens. Now, I wouldn't want to be at a meal and in a meeting and using a hinged face mask so I could put food in my mouth. But I guess part of that reason for that is to let some air in and to, I guess, maybe Google it, find out more about this. It's really a design that is a mask with a way of opening. Oh, the color of her blouse is like the background, and she likes that. And part of that is, I guess, whoever took this picture. I'm going to move on. Let's look at this speaker. And any comments? What do you notice? Yes, body language needs to be interpreted in the context of the situation. That's what I've been saying. It's not all one thing means this, and that's the way it is. He looks intense and engrossed in what he's doing. Someone else says his hands are open and he's engaged or appears engaged. Intense. So where does the intensity come from? Confidence, someone's saying. Where does that come from? His eyes is the comment in the chat. And his face. Conviction, someone says. So something, even though he's not live to us, energetically, there's use of gestures and intensity. We can actually process intensity visually, not just energetically, but we sense he is looking at the audience. He is intense and passionate about the topic that he's speaking on. Great. And Flexors are extended, someone wrote. Okay, let's go to the next slide. What do you notice? So I'm again going to read from the chat. The colors are vibrant, so that's what popped out first. The smile, the teeth, big smile, beautiful smile. The head scarf, okay. Cheerful, glowing energy. Okay, so notice that you notice the face and the clothing, and did not mention posture, did not mention race or culture, and she appears happy, moving forward. If these two people were on your GoToMeeting screen, both black and white shots, different age groups, someone in deep thought, appears to be thinking, visionary. The one on the left is listening, the one on the right is thinking, engaged. So we really don't know, but we can project. This is not meant to be yet. We can project. We have no knowledge about whether that person's listening or whether they're thinking, but we can assume, because we're human and we process people, that these are possibilities. Someone said they look like they're debating whether or not to leave Germany. Very funny. All right. Someone might also say might be daydreaming. So, whoops, sorry. Looking at this screen of people, I'm curious how we see a lot of different backgrounds, and this is pretty typical. We see a lot of different expressions. This is often the cause of too many Zoom meetings or too many virtual meetings is often the cause of Zoom fatigue, or someone explained it as highway hypnosis, because you're so concentrated on the screen, it's almost too hard to really see the body language of one person at a time, unless you have the setting on that one person speaking. So we have a lot of visual overload going on. Someone said, I like the person with the cat ears. I'm not sure which one that is. Group singing. Okay. Had another question. I'm going to flip through this for a second and stop sharing the screen and get back to you for a minute. And perhaps there's some questions. I'm having trouble. Let's see. Okay, I'm sorry. I lost you for a minute. I'm going to go to the chat for a minute. Someone commented that they're mostly young people, females on the Zoom picture. So that's something one person in the audience noticed that I didn't notice. And then the cat ears stood out. What's my take on headsets? Let me see people. Thank you. I think it's a good idea if you're distracted and if you have a hearing issue of any sort, or if you tend to be auditorily distracted, to wear a headset. The headsets with the microphones sometimes give you a better sound. I'm not an authority on headsets. I really will defer to my sound engineer friends around that. Some of them who think you must have a headset. I know it will bring it closer to you to help you stay attentive, but when David and I test drove this presentation, the audio was good enough for our purposes to use the built-in microphones of the laptop. Does anybody want to speak about headsets? I see Jerry has one, and there's some other people that I saw. Robert has one. Do you want to unmute yourself and share?
I will share that in another meeting. A Gen Z attendee said that when she sees people wearing headsets, it signals old to her because her generation doesn't use them. They use earbuds. So it was a really interesting insight. I was very curious to know if you had heard anything like that or had any thoughts on that.
Well, you know, our demographics here are probably more skewed than traditional workforces now, and aging is a reality. You know, I'm the kind of person who doesn't care what people think in such a big way. So if the headset serves you, Deborah has a headset. She's not 105 years old. You know, Deborah, do you want to speak to why you have a headset? Could you? There you go.
I don't necessarily think my sound and volume on my computer is as good as when I use the headset. And it also, I think, helps me maybe mitigate any unexpected noise in the room.
There you go.
Eileen, I give a slightly different answer to this. I think obviously it's always about, you know, individual preference, but I would say depending on the.
Who am I listening to?
I'm sorry, this is George.
Good.
So what I would suggest is, you know, it's the old, you know, whatever floats your boat. But I would say if you're going to be doing more of these, I would probably try and find a headset that's low profile and doesn't look like it's this monstrosity that's on your head. So whether or not you use earbuds or you use something that I'll just call as low profile, I think there's a very subtle level of sophistication to doing that. And it's one less thing. Because if you're wearing a really big headset, that's just, it's a distractor in a sense. But there's a very simplistic earbuds you can get and much lower profile. Now, yeah, there's going to be a cost to that, but I think it's a subtle professionalism is how I would word it.
It's interesting because my nephew at 20 I asked for a headset for Christmas, and I got a very big headset that had great sound, and I use it mostly for music, but I never thought of it in a prejudicial age way. But I hear you, George, that you might get a smaller looking headset to not have it be distraction. Anyone else want to talk about headset?
Can I mention something about the headsets?
So that's a person I'm not hearing very well.
You're not coming through clearly.
Wow. Okay. Yes, so that's part of the problem. I cannot use a headset with my lovely Dell Experience 5000 computer. But what I was going to say was, in a networking meeting of this sort, I'm okay with whatever kind of headset you might want to use. I strongly prefer the look of David Schutzman, who's got like one earpiece and the microphone hangs down, I believe. Or some people obviously today you've seen a lot of earbuds. But if we were doing an interview for a job, I think then definitely you want to get away from the large two-sided ear puff type thing with a microphone, right? Because if you're doing a job interview, it's almost like a sales call. They have to like you. Anything that you do to take away from your face and your expressions on your face, that's a big drawback. So I would leave it at that. I would go with something very small if you could. And I apologize about the sound if you couldn't hear me, but again, I can't use any type of external piece at all.
So the main idea is distraction more than ageism, and something that looks modern and works well. So when you're a presenter and you have a lot of people on the screen, I don't pay attention to the headsets at all, except that some have them and some don't have them. So I think virtual right now, I really want to make this point, and some of my clients said is very forgiving. Virtual now is very forgiving. We're all adapting to the new normal. We're doing our jobs from home, remotely, virtually, for most people, maybe for the first time. So background, lighting, angles, headsets, that's not so important right now. But my projection is going to be, as work opens and has reduced, say, attendance on the job site and more work from home opportunity in business, the impact of your image and the way you present yourself online is going to start to matter, just like speaking publicly in front of a group has influence in terms of your messaging and your promotability or your opportunities. So right now, I think we're in this space of let's just try to communicate in a way that we never communicated before, get used to the technology. I would say the big takeaways in terms of virtual are look at the camera if you want to get the sense of engagement with others. If adjust the lighting or play with the height and the angle of your computer so that you look framed and as comfortable as you can. For me, if I don't have that, I don't feel so positive about myself. It works both ways for many. You see yourself look good, you feel good. You feel good, you project good. Well, and so I think that's my reality. Everyone isn't me, so it could be very different. I think there's some level playing field aspect to this technology in terms of the group, say a team. I think you're less judgmental in the group space than you might be as you walk into a network meeting. But as someone indicated to me yesterday with a question before this, when it's one-on-one or you're being interviewed and it's just you on the screen with your interviewer, and sometimes there's robotics or artificial intelligence as your interviewer, you're being screened robotically, there is a disadvantage because there's a timing mechanism in terms of how long you get to answer the question. You're on the screen, you are being judged by, if it's an interviewer, not the AI, someone else's perception. It's not quite as objective. If you have a speech problem, if you have a disability, it's visual. It's like the voice started out with the chairs turned around so you didn't quite see the person and judge their voice by their image. But in the end, in the semifinals, you are being judged by the total package, not just your voice. And I think that plays in here too. We are a combination of what we say, how we say it, and how we manage this space, which to me has a lot to do with who you are on the inside, the confidence, the beliefs, the attitudes, and how you let that behave or how that drives your behavior. So some things you can learn from the outside in terms of camera placement or how you dress or colors or backgrounds for virtual, and how you stand and where your eye contact goes in live meetings, and what your handshake is like, if there ever is a handshake again, or an elbow touch, or I've seen feet, shoe clicks as a way of saying hello. There are some things you can learn, but there's always going to be a level of uniqueness in terms of who you are and how you project yourself. So getting back to the screen.
Eileen, I have two questions, or rather two comments, if I may. One, you may want to talk about the size of the face on the screen. You see, right now, if you see my screen, my face is as small as a stamp on an envelope. You barely can see me. Now, when I get closer, half or better than half of your screen is my face. It also shows the imperfection. So the distance that you have from the camera, I think it's quite important. That's one. The other topic, and again, I do interview preparation with my people, and I notice when I'm asking them rather difficult question, they look at me and they look sideways and they look at me, and we communicate with our eyes. I communicate with you by looking at your eyes, and you communicate with me. The moment your eyes are elsewhere, I interpret that in a different way. So how can people train by forcing themselves looking at the person interviewing them?
Thank you, Alex. So the first thing you mentioned was the distance from the camera, which I mentioned in the beginning, that if you step back a little bit, you have a better ability to see in front of you who you're speaking to and direct your eyes to the camera. That was handled. Your point about people's thinking postures is very well taken in terms of people access information differently. If anyone knows about neuro-linguistic programming, it is a study of how people use their eyes when they're accessing memory or information. So maybe some people look up to the right to remember something that happened experientially. And maybe some people move their eyes, and I'm moving my head, I realize that, down and to the left when they're collecting information. Everything on a screen is exaggerated to a point like it's micro scene, which if you're a person like me and you don't prefer your pictures taken, and yet we are doing a recording, I'm stretching. You notice those little things and you're not comfortable. All right, so if it's neurologically based that your eyes do different things to access information, is there a workaround? This is really, I think, what Alice is saying. Yes, you can learn, just like a media journalist learns, how to answer a question and keep your eyes centered. Your tendency might be, well, let me think about that. Yeah, and you might start talking and your eyes are off in another direction, or your head goes down. When it's on a screen, it's more noticeable. As I mentioned before, some people won't notice it. Some people will be oblivious to it because of what they focus on. Everyone doesn't focus exactly the same. Other people, and Alex is probably one of them because he's bringing up the question, if you ask that interviewee a question and their eyes move to another location and the interviewer doesn't feel looked at, it's a miss. So it's not a miss for everybody, but yes, you can learn to answer questions and look straight ahead. When I do some interview coaching, and I haven't done it online very much, but most of my work in the past was face-to-face. If I notice someone routinely, as a pattern, answers questions by turning their head, or it could be just their eyes, but often it's more turning their head, changing their posture. If it's a pattern, I point it out. And I think that's important for people to see. I don't know if this is being done with your clients, Alex, but recording practice sessions will help you see what your viewer is seeing. And that can be a real uncomfortable situation for many, but it's a very continuous improvement driver to see yourself, to hear yourself, and to notice, oh, when that question was asked, I looked uncomfortable and I turned away. So I'm going to get back to the screen. Can everyone see? It's been on for a long time. Woo. Whoa. I'm sorry. It went. I'm having some technical problems here. It crashed. Okay. What do you think of this? What are you seeing? Anybody speak up?
An argument. It looks like an argument to me. Yeah.
Thank you. Is that David?
No, it's Jay. My camera's
Okay.
off. We've apparently reached our webcam limit.
Okay, yeah. So we're almost done. So Jay, thank you. It's an argument. How can you tell?
The one woman's got her arms crossed. She looks very pissed off. And the other woman doesn't look too happy either. She actually has sort of a condescending look to her, like she's, telling another woman this is how it is. Nobody looks very friendly in this picture. And then you have the innocent bystander, live streaming like this argument in case it breaks out into a fist fight.
So first you notice the posture of the arms, then you notice the face, right? Yep. And even though you don't see a full face, you can get the sense. We are very tuned in to each other because we're all from the same race. Even if we're different physically and emotionally, we have we know the essence of being human. We know feelings, and obviously you can process that. So I just, my computer went down again. So I guess we're supposed to be over.
Must be a sign.
I guess. I'm so sorry. Let's see if I can do it again.
Hey, David, put another nickel in the machine so we get more time, okay?
All right. So this is what I want you to get. I'm back. Oh, gosh. So this is what I want you to get from today. Body language is what you see and how you see it. So Albert Mehrabian's percentages are being challenged, and we really should do some new research in this domain, especially as we're in the virtual reality. But it's what you see. That's the basics. We have different ways of processing. We all aren't television preferring people. Some prefer reading, and some prefer being shown how to do something. So we have to assume that because our brains differ, we're going to process body language a little bit differently, which is kind of a paradox because we are human. We know a lot about people, but that doesn't mean we all see the same thing at the same time in the same way. So some people notice the cross arms, some people might notice the face. Some people like the smile with the woman who had the cross arms. The whole, to me, is always greater than the sum of the parts. This is only my virtual presentation, Eileen. This is not the whole Eileen. When you work with me, or whether you play with me, whether you see me socially in a family situation, or you see me with friends, or you see me get an award, no matter what, the context is important, but also the headshot, the arm gestures, the camera looking, that's a piece, that's a skill set. It isn't everything about who you are, this one moment that's captured on video. How you feel, that inside part, that's the image on the left corner, how you feel, what you believe, what your inner thoughts are a major piece of who you are. And if you think about feeling sad or fearful, it's going to show up in some physicality about yourself as well. Maybe in the face, maybe in your energy. And by the same token, if you're feeling positive, optimistic, energized, it can show up in a very positive way in your body. Is it the same for everybody? Of course not. But the potential is there, or the rudiments are there. So it's what I want you to know is that the inside drives the outside. However, you can train the outside to manage the inside. And so if I hate to be on camera and I'm not good at this, and I really wish I was back into the physical space, that's where I'm best. If you stay in that space, it's harder to grow into a new space. So you have to kind of realize that your thought process, your beliefs, and your feelings will also be projected through your behavior. For video conferencing like this, lighting, sound, angles, background, headsets perhaps that are small are going to be your physical supports, some pillars to make you appear as well as you can, so that your words are taken in and your messaging heard the way you intended it. If I was the whole time with you in this mode, I think it would get difficult to watch, as well as credibility might be challenged. And I think there's one more. So here we are. Look at the camera to engage. I've been practicing this from about a foot away from where I started, which was like this in general since the pandemic. And that way you can put yourself in your environment. You can use your hands better, because if I use my hands here, you don't see me using my hands. And it mimics more the way you are when you're live with someone. Last few questions from anyone? David's like, we're over time, maybe. Anybody have a question before we end? We went on a long time. Thank you for putting up with the glitches. Like I said, I think this is very forgiving. This is what I do in training and coaching. It's all about communication, whether it's a conflict, whether it's an interview, whether it's a presentation. There are a lot of pieces that go into helping people as a coach. So if you have that interest, please be in touch with me. my goal is for you to communicate at your best. And for me, it's learning to communicate at my best virtually. And I want to just say thank you very much for your participation, for your tolerance on glitches, for starting late. And I wish you well. And my very last slide is there is a 3-session coaching discount for virtual development, professional development, or I do have an office and it allows people to be at a distance. So I only schedule one person in the morning and one person in the afternoon. And if people are interested in any kind of coaching on site, that is a offering. In the meantime, I hope you all have a great Saturday and Sunday, and thank you for being here.
Well, terrific. Thank you, Eileen. Leave this slide up just for another moment or two so people can either take a screenshot or memorize your contact information. This was a very robust presentation. There's obviously a lot to body language, and I'm so glad you were able to cover so many of the points. And additionally, making it relevant for now the virtual communications that we've been doing for the past several months. And I agree, I think there's gonna be a lot more of this, and so we should get comfortable using it and realize some of our body language does project, and we need to have a good presence virtually as well as when we're able to meet more often and regularly in person. So thank you. I've known Eileen for a little while. I've seen this presentation before, so I'm glad it has evolved into supporting virtual communication. Very important. For those of you keeping track of us in the Breakfast Club, as a reminder, you can, if you have not already, please join our group more formally. There's no cost to do that. Go to our website, thebreakfastclubnj.com, and click the join button. Please provide all the information that they're asking. And if you do need a reference who referred you to the group, just use my name. And you will be accepted into that. You can follow us on Facebook, on Meetup. Obviously, Meetup was very effective for us this morning. And our website, Adrienne Roman does keep those up for us and does a great job in doing so. So we appreciate her support. There are a number of people that do keep the Breakfast Club rolling, so thanks to everybody. And also want to let you know we will be meeting virtually again next month. It'll be July 11th. And Ashley Owens is going to be presenting, and it's a really fun presentation, how not to suck at networking. I was introduced to her a few months ago, got to see this presentation. She just exudes fun and energy. So I hope you have the opportunity. She gives us great advice on how to not suck at networking. And that will be next month, next second Saturday of the month, July 11th, 2020, Saturday, July 11th, 8 o'clock in the morning. And so that's what we've got going. So once again, special thank you to Eileen. Thank you, Jerry, for helping me. Hopefully Frank will be able to be back on and we will be more normal. I know he's been real busy. He watches the videos later. So thank you everyone for participating. We hope to see you all virtually next month. If not sooner, we'll see you in other venues as well. So have a good week, everyone. Enjoy the sunny day, and we'll talk with you again soon. Bye, everyone.